So this would obviously be true that awakening is the opposite of being asleep in a certain kind of way. And what would that be? Well, it would be the opposite of being unconscious for the most part. I mean, we're always going to have some unconsciousness. It's natural and healthy. And also the opposite of wanting to go numb. And that seems to be so much of what we're doing these days is numbing ourselves. And one of the ways is by chasing experiences. There's an addiction to experience. And what would that do? Well, it would cover over the moment and replacing it with something other than what is. So let's go backwards. So going numb, going numb. Well, how many people raise your hand? Now and then we need to go check out. And I am not saying anything negative about that, but what I'm talking about is this addiction to not being here, just plain checking out, checking out. And that would mean addicted to YouTubes, to videos, to scrolling, to gosh, that's just the internet. Addiction to drama, addiction to certain kinds of relationships, where there's always just the hunger for what's next, always what's next, rather than what's now. So, awakening is sometimes the reality of it is super sobering, that it's basically revealing that really there's no escape. There's no escaping what might be called what is. Just being here. Not in a boring kind of way, but really being here. Really being here, and without the protection and the overlay over the experience of just simply not manufacturing another moment, but actually being here. The unsatisfactoriness of life is something that the Buddhists have spoken about, and for centuries is just this general malaise of like, this is just never good enough. Just this moment, what is just not good enough. And we've been entrained and now hypnotized and also conditioned to look for another moment, and less and less capacity for humanity, it seems, to be able to stop and just simply be here. That's why I think so many people talk about the good old days, those who do. So I was a young adult in the 80s and 90s, and what was good about those good old days, of those old days, is that there weren't cell phones, there wasn't the internet. And I know I'm using the internet right now, right? I'm using this right now, this medium. And there's some good things about it that are bringing people together. But what was good about those days is that everything was slower. There were less distractions. It was already difficult being here, difficult enough, but people were just more in sync with real time. It wasn't perfect, and I'm not saying that idealizing it, but it was almost like could just stop and be. You could wait 5 minutes for someone being late. Now it's like online. If I'm late a few minutes in a session, it's really obvious. It's like with this kind of spaciousness. We don't really have that so much anymore of just, you know, someone writes an email and you expect a response, instead of the spaciousness of the phone call long ago. And probably people from the older days, from before all that, were reflect on how good the old days were before that, of before even having any of that. Maybe, I don't know. I don't want to take this too far. But really my point is that it's just become increasingly difficult being here. just being here. And as spiritual practitioners or people who are, if you're interested in really learning how to live the awakened state, be awakened, live your natural true nature, it requires a stopping, and that's not always easy. I know that. It's tough, you know. This stopping requires a slowing down, and that means that all the stuff that has been pushed aside is going to come rushing in and say hello, and it can be deeply uncomfortable. And so, you know, throughout time, people have been running away from being uncomfortable. It's not a new thing. I'm not naive about that, but it's just become easier and easier to um, avoid being here. So this numbing is become quite unconscious, and it can be done even with news. Overly addicted to news, numbing. Even hopping from teaching to teaching, video to video, being kind of led this way and that way is an avoidance of actually really being here and stopping and being opening to what is here, truth as it is, reality unveiled, just what it is, just what it is. So my hope is that we wake up to our senses, come more to our senses, I guess, and stop being led, hypnotized, going unconscious in the myriad of ways that we do it, and really come to grips with the fact that we're getting further away, not closer. Some of us, some of you, getting closer to to really being here without wanting to be elsewhere. But if you find yourself having a hard time, first of all, a lot of it could be just that the nervous system is on overwhelm, and that one could use some really good um, nervous system support and body work, and maybe even trauma support or whatever. It can be a lot to just stop and actually be here, because what is here will rush to the surface, and make one squiggle and be deeply uncomfortable, Um, but also to just sort of unplug from the things and take like do personal retreats at home of not always being listening to something or being distracted, being on the phone with a friend, or feeling like you need to tell something that something just what's taking place in your life. Let yourself percolate and stew. That's what the spiritual aspirant and journey has been about throughout time. You know, the practitioner is coming back, stepping back and resting and leaning back in yourself and learning how to stay here, be here, not elsewhere, not out there, not lost in some idea of what awakening is, some belief about reality, resistance, but learn and just really be able to learn how to stay here and face yourself, face those uncomfortable shadows and things that are surfacing, that are wanting attention, that are trying to grab you, rather than just going numb. And I'm not saying all the time, but just take solid amounts of time, and daily too, take time and say, hey, can I cut out this from my day? Just this habit that takes me away from learning how to just be here. If that's what you want, there's no one forcing one to and tying us down like the clockwork orange to be here and to see and to encounter reality. But if you're wanting to become conscious, if you're wanting truth, if you wanting to remember what you are, it's always here, but it's being covered over by the numbness, the addiction to experience, by running away from the moment as it is. How is it supposed to come forward, what's always here, and then have and then live this life? That's what we're meant to do, is live this life, not be living an altered reality, a fabricated reality, but to really live this life. There's so many no, so many things coming in from the outside that are trying to rob us of actually living our lives. Don't let that happen. Don't let that take place. Don't give away your power, and don't give away your power to your own addiction to wanting to move away from being here. Wake yourself up, make it conscious, catch yourself, and slowly, slowly, you will right your ship and learn how to be here. It's a lot. I know. It's a lot to be here. There's a lot of input and sensory impressions. We're sensitive creatures, we're sensitive beings. Being here actually makes one feel the intimacy of reality. There's the less and less protection until it's just as much as one can with our human being makeup unveiled, unveiled and here. It's our birthright, and I wish it for everybody. So check in and see if this is what you want, is to be here, is you to be here with what is, and not in imagination and numbing and chasing another moment. Warm wishes to you. Be well.